Welcome back, Sorcery friends. Today on the channel, we're going to do a Deathspeaker deck tech video and a budget upgrade. We're going to look at the Deathspeaker avatar that we pulled in our alpha box kind of mail day the other day. We have thus far two Sorcerer foil avatars that came in the box topper packs. And the first avatar that we pulled in alpha was the Deathspeaker. So that gave me the idea to make a deck tech video and also try to build the alpha deck around the Deathspeaker. So these are all the cards. I'm going to use black sleeves for the alpha deck. That will include cards that go in the Deathspeaker deck in alpha. I also have the rest of my alpha collection sleeved in blue sleeves. I still need a few more sleeves to finish the rest of the cards, but you get the idea. And so I also thought that some of the alpha card prices, especially the Death Dealer, is one of the cards that you need for the Deathspeaker deck, and that's several $100s, at least $250. So if you don't have that, it's going to be an expensive task to complete in alpha. So I thought, let's try to do it in beta. And so the Deathspeaker is an avatar that's not included in one of the pre-constructed decks that you get in this beta pre-con kit. So you have to pull the Deathspeaker in booster packs, and that's what I've done. I have a couple copies of Deathspeaker, but for today's demonstration video, we'll use, these are all beta cards. So these are all beta cards that would go into the Deathspeaker deck. Eric's Curiosa has a great deck library where you can search for decks or search for certain avatars, and so I pulled up an aggro deck that uses the Deathspeaker. This is the beta Deathspeaker and the alpha Deathspeaker. You can tell the difference between the two cards by the print symbol at the bottom. The alphas have the letter A at the bottom, betas have the letter B at the bottom, and also the print quality is slightly higher in the beta print run. So if you look at the alpha Deathspeaker, this will, if I can get it on camera for you, it's gonna be kind of hard, but you wanna see, there's the A. There you go. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the A in the bottom. That's the alpha. Beta is gonna be a little B. There's the B, if you can see that. So that's the beta symbol. Also, the print quality is going to be a little different. So the alpha print run, there will be rosette patterns that you can see, just like alpha magic cards. So in the alpha version, the print quality is a little lower, so the rosette pattern is a little bit bigger. The dots are a little bit bigger. If you look at like the casting cost or the life total here on the avatar, there's 20. You can see some rosettes in there. And then if you're looking at the beta, the print quality is going to be a little higher in the beta print run. So you should see finer, the rosettes are going to be a little smaller, and the print quality is going to be a little finer in the beta. So those are the differences between the alpha and beta. If you can't see the alpha and beta at the bottom of the card, you can check those with a loop, a jeweler's loop, or just 10x magnification. I think there was a great video by Hane at Wizard's Den who pointed out the differences in those under extreme magnification, but under 10x you can definitely see a little difference. So my alpha deck, I'm missing probably 75% of the cards, but that's going to be a work in progress. That's my there. So then I'll go through all the cards in the deck list and suggest some upgrades and make some comments as we go. So the Deathspeaker is the avatar of choice. You can tap to play or draw a site, and you may also cast one dead minion each turn. And when you're at 0 at Death's Door, you can cast dead minions for nothing. So whenever you summon a minion this way, then you banish it. So you get it into play for one turn. This Deathspeaker takes over the game when it's at Death's Door. That's when you start getting your creatures from the graveyard, your opponent's creatures from the graveyard, into play at a discount and start doing some damage. So we have some auras in the deck. I think they suggested 5 auras, 2 summoning spheres they would like. You may summon minions to affected sites with those. They suggested a jihad, which is an aura. It's a unique aura and it fire minions to the affected sites, and allied minions have +1 power. That card is hard to find. It's also over like $50. So there are other cards that might also give allied minions +1 power. I found this this weapon. It's a flaming sword. It's an exceptional weapon, and the bear has +1 power, and it strikes splash full damage to each other enemy at struck unit's location. So that's a potential replacement for Jihad if you don't have Jihad. There's also Thunderstorm, 2 copies of Thunderstorm, which we have, and it deals 3 damage to a random unit atop affected site when you may move Thunderstorm 1 step. It also lasts 3 of your turns. Then there are some artifacts. They suggest the Aquamarine or the Onyx Core. The important thing to note about the Deathspeaker deck is that it is an air fire deck, 2-color deck, and they want to put the Aquamarine Core and Onyx Core in your deck so that you can cast water and earth minions and spells. Those would primarily be your opponent's water and earth spells that are in their graveyard. Once you get to Death's Door, if you have the Aquamarine Core and Onyx Core in play, you can cast those without having the threshold you would need from your land sites. So instead, on a discount, if you don't have the Aquamarine or Onyx Core, which are a couple $100, you can put in the mixes. So I grabbed 1 copy of Mix Aqua, which is an elite potion. You can only use it once because you have to sacrifice the Mix Aqua, but your next water spell requires no threshold and costs 3 mana less to cast. And similarly, Mix Terra is for earth spells. You don't need the threshold, and they cost 3 less mana to cast. Then there are some minions. There's quite a few minions in the deck. We have Immortal. This is a Highland Falconer, 2 copies of Highland Falconer. We have 4 copies of Vile Imp, which deals 2 damage to the target adjacent unit. Again, these are all beta copies. The beta exceptionals and ordinaries can be picked up for less than 50 cents, so it's pretty affordable to build this deck in the beta version. We have 4 copies of Sacred Scarabs. It's an ordinary beast. It's airborne, it has death rate, and deals 3 damage to each unit when it dies. Then we have 4 copies of Apprentice Wizard. This is a spellcaster with Genesis and lets you draw a spell. Then we have 3 copies of Quarrelsome Kobolds. These are goblins, and at the end of your turn, Quarrelsome Kobolds strike themselves or another target adjacent unit. Those are fire. Then we have 2 copies of Panorama Manticore. It's airborne lethal beast, and at the end of your turn, you cast a non-fire spell this turn, untap Panorama Manticore. Those are all in the deck, the aggro deck. There's 1 copy of Dapperville Vampire. It has airborne. Damage dealt by Dapperville Vampire strikes heals you. 2 copies of Grandmaster Wizard, which is a spellcaster. It's an elite mortal, and it has Genesis, draw 3 spells. So 2 copies of those. There's also 1 copy of Riddle Sphinx in the deck. The creator mentions this in the comments. This is kind of a meme card. It has airborne, it costs 6. It also has Genesis and lets you look at the topmost spell. You can put that card on the bottom of your spellbook. Then your opponent may exchange the top and bottom of your spellbook, and then you draw a card. So it's sort of a play on like, kind of spoofs your opponent to thinking whether they know which card you put on the bottom, if you liked it or not. I may take Riddle Sphinx out of the deck, but it also has the draw spell, which is kind of useful in this deck. There is the Death Dealer. That's the card that would go in this deck next. It's a mortal. It costs 7. It has Genesis, and it kills all other minions at the site. So I don't have Death Dealer in beta. It's about $45 or $50, and it has different artwork than the Frank Frazetta artwork. So I would suggest a replacement is this Elite Ancient Dragon. It also costs 7. You need threshold of 3. It has 6 power toughness. It has airborne, and when you tap it, it deals 4 damage to each other nearby unit at target location. So that will accomplish some of the effect of the Death Dealer, but it will only cost you about $1 to get that card into your deck if you're playing beta. Into the magics and magic spells, the spells of the deck, we have 3 copies of Firebolts. As recommended, they shoot 3 projectiles in the same direction, 1 at a time, and each deals 1 damage. So it's kind of like a Triskelion for Magic the Gathering. We have 4 copies of Lightning Bolt. These deal 3 damage just like the original Lightning Bolt does in Magic the Gathering. There's 1 copy of Disenchant, which destroys all auras and artifacts at target location up to 2 steps away. Then we have 2 copies of Infiltrate. Infiltrate is a sophisticated elite magic. You gain control of target enemy minion until it deals damage, and you tap it and it gains stealth. So 2 copies of those. Then they suggest a magic called Pact with the Devil, which if you sacrifice half of your life, you draw 3 cards. So I would suggest if you don't have Pact with the Devil, you can try Unlikely Alliance, which is an air spell. And since you're going to be playing some air sites that let you cast air spells, you could play this in your deck. It's an elite magic for 4 mana. You draw a card for each rarity among allied minions that you control. So it's possibly you could gain, you could draw 3 cards with that, like a Ancestral Recall. Then we get to the sites, the atlases. I also want to point out there's 42 spells and 20 atlases. So if you wanted to take out 2 of these spells and maybe not play the Pact with the Devil, or not play the Jihad, or not play the Death Dealer, you could totally do that and get away with just your 40 card minimum pretty easily without the 2 or 3 big expensive cards in the deck. There's 20 atlases. There's 1 atlas that I don't have, so I'll suggest a budget replacement for that when we get to that as well. They recommend the 1 copy of Dark Tower, which is an ordinary site, which is pretty easy to find. 1 copy of Gothic Tower, which is also pretty easy to find. I think I'll do it like this. You see that? Dark Gothic. 1 copy of Lone Tower, which is also an air site. All of these give you 1 mana this turn, if it's the only Lone Tower, and if it's the only Gothic Tower, and if it's the only Dark Tower. So doubling these up doesn't really help, so it's good to have just 1 copy of each of those. There are 3 copies of Ruins, which is an exceptional dual site. It also gives you air or fire, which is perfect for this deck because this deck requires air and fire spells. It recommends the Geistwood, which is a unique site that has Genesis abilities and also has Deathrite abilities, which plays into the Avatar Deathspeaker. So I have 1 copy of the Geistwood in my beta beta set that I don't want to play with. So I have an extra copy of Bottomless Pit. I'm going to suggest that this elite site, whenever a non-airborne minion enters this site, it is killed. That is potentially good because it puts creatures into the graveyard, which is where you want to access them with the Deathspeaker. So I'm going to suggest Bottomless Pit instead of Geistwood. Geistwood is also probably $10 to $15 in beta, and Bottomless Pit is probably $1 or $2. So some savings on that budget. The next site is Lighthouse. This is a dual site. It's a water or air site, which you'll need to cast your opponent's water spells. There's 2 copies of Oasis. This is a dual site. This is a water or fire site, which you will also need to cast your opponent's water spells. Then we have a unique River of Flame. This is a fire spellcaster site. We have a Vesuvius. It's a unique site. It costs 3 threshold. There are 3 copies of Remote Desert, only because I didn't have 3 copies of Arid Desert. That's what the deck list recommends. But you could easily replace these deserts with other deserts. So I'm including 3 copies of Remote Deserts, which are ordinary sites. They have Genesis. They all deal 1 damage to each minion atop target nearby site. They're all the same, and it's exact same as Arid Desert as well. Then we have a unique, The Color of Outer Space. This was an extra copy that we had. It's about $10, but we had one in beta. So it's a 4-color site: Earth, Fire, Water, and Air. Pretty cool card. They recommend 1 copy of Observatory, which we have. It has Genesis. You look at the next 3 spells and you put them back in any order. And then last card, I believe, yes. The last Atlas site in the deck is Watchtower. This is art by Jeff Mingus. It is an air atlas. Enemy units atop nearby sites permanently lose stealth. So those are the 20 sites that we'll put in this deck. There's also a suggested sideboard of 10 cards that has 1 Disenchant, 3 Iron Shackles, 2 Scorched Earth, a Rolling Boulder, a Poison Nova, 1 Drums of Doom, 1 Major Explosion, and that's it. I also pulled out some extra cards that I had that might be useful for this deck. I found a unique Boneyard, which has Genesis, and each player may summon a minion from their cemetery here, which could be useful for the Deathspeaker, but the Deathspeaker can already summon minions from the graveyard. It just gives your opponent the advantage to be able to summon minions from their graveyard if they're not on the Deathspeaker deck, so I left this one out. I also had an extra copy of Mirror Realm, which you could put in instead of the Bottomless Pit or the Geistwood. This could give you an extra an extra Observatory or an extra Watchtower or an extra copy of one of your opponent's sites. And then the last card that I might suggest is Chaos Twister. You can get this in beta for about $1. It could replace any of the cards that deal damage, kill minions, because you just flip this onto the battlefield and it destroys the cards it lands on. So that's the suggested sideboard. I'm gonna say that this is basically my budget Deathspeaker deck tech and upgrade video. Let me know if you agree in the comments. If you've played Deathspeaker, let me know as well. Some tips and tricks for how to cast both colors effectively. If you don't have the Death Dealer, is Ancient Dragon suitable replacement? If you don't have the cores, could you play the mixes? Those are my questions for the day. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'm gonna take a screenshot for the thumbnail. I will upload this video and look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Thanks everyone.